dear students, the title of this lecture is Crusoe's Third Adventure. Students, just before we start talking about Crusoe's third adventure, let us discuss our question related to Crusoe's narration, in which he says, "This filled me with those aspiring thoughts which have since completed my ruin." Crusoe here hints at his disaster, which is being cast away on a remote island, an island on which he lives 28 years. Crusoe's narration here shows that he is writing his diaries, and of course this is done on the island, which means that he is narrating events after his tragic end, which is being shipwrecked and isolated on a deserted island. This is why he says that it is his ambition to be a sailor and a merchant that has drawn his own ruin or his own tragic end. Crusoe's third adventure. Students, as you know, last time we said that by the help of a nice and honest captain, Crusoe has succeeded to sail to Africa, particularly to Guinea, where he has made a good business. Let us see today whether this man will keep supporting and guiding Crusoe in this adventure, or is going to let him do it alone, depending on himself. Students, would you please open your books on page 15, the last paragraph. "I was now set up for a Guinea trader, and my friend, to my great misfortune, dying soon after his arrival, I resolved to go to the same voyage again, and I embarked in the same vessel with one who was his mate in the former voyage, and had now got the command of the ship." Students, as you see here, Crusoe makes up his mind to make another voyage. He resolves to sail to Africa again, but this time he's going to go without his friend, the honest captain, since the latter died after being arrived from Guinea. Crusoe takes with him the same seafaring men who sailed with him last voyage. Embarking in the same ship of his last voyage, Crusoe, the young man, seems proud of being the captain of this ship. Students, we are still discussing the same page and the same paragraph, in which Crusoe continues his narration saying, "I fell into terrible misfortunes in this voyage, and the first was this, with our ship making her course towards the Canary Island, or rather between those islands and the African shore, was surprised in the grey of the morning by Turkish rover of Salih, who gave chase to us with all the sail she could make. We crowded also as much canvas as our yards would spread, or our masts carry, to have got clear, but finding the pirates gained upon us, and would certainly come up with us in a few hours, we prepared to fight." Again, Crusoe seems unfortunate here. Danger and threat seem to follow him in this adventure. Crusoe and his men, who are sailing to Africa to make business, have been chased by Turkish pirates who threaten their lives. To save themselves and preserve the ship, Crusoe and his men have to do something. They have failed to escape the danger of their enemy, and they have found themselves obliged to fight. In other words, they have found that being in a battle with their enemy is something cannot be avoided. So let us see what they are going to do. Crusoe continues his narration, telling us that they have got less guns than their enemy, the Turkish pirates. This means that achieving a triumph is something difficult, but Crusoe and his men have done all their best to defend themselves. The narration of Crusoe also shows that the battle seems very violent, and it ends with a disaster, as he himself says here. "Our ship being disabled, and 3 of our men killed, and 8 wounded. We were obliged to yield, and we were carried all prisoners into Salih, a port belonging to the Moors. Students, you can find this quotation in page 16. Students, as you see here, the battle ends with a tragic end. Crusoe's ship is destroyed. Some of his men are killed. Some others are wounded. Crusoe and the sailors who survived death have been taken as prisoners or slaves to Salih, a port in Morocco. Now, the second paragraph of page 16, in which Crusoe continues his narration saying, "The usage I had there was not so dreadful as at first I apprehended, nor was I carried up the country to the Emperor's court, as the rest of our men were, but was kept by the captain of the rover as his proper prize, and made his slave, being young and noble, and fit for his business. At this surprising change of my circumstances, from a merchant to a miserable slave, I was perfectly overwhelmed, and now I looked back upon my father's prophetic discourse to me, that I should be miserable and have none to relieve me. Being young and noble, I mean being skillful in swimming and other things, Crusoe is kept with his master in Salih. He is given to him as a prize, while other men who are captured are carried as slaves to the Emperor's court. Crusoe has to live his new life, a life which is full of misery and difficulties. This change of his circumstances from a merchant or a master to a slave serving others causes him deep bitterness and sadness. This miserable life makes Crusoe remember bitterly the advice of his father and his warning words that he should be miserable if he continues riding the sea. Crusoe here feels regret, but now time is over, and Crusoe has to pay the price of his mistake, which is ignoring the advice of his father. Students, would you please go to the third paragraph, the same page, page 16, in which Crusoe continues his narration saying, "As my new patron or master had taken me home to his house, so I was in hopes that he would take me with him when he went to sea again, believing that it would some time or other be his fate to be taken by a Spanish or a Portugal man of war, and that then I should be set at liberty." Crusoe lives as a slave in his master's house. He hopes to find a chance to escape his slavery. He hopes his master to take him to sea in order to find a chance to escape. Crusoe also dreams of seeing his master being taken as a slave by a Portugal or a Spanish ship. But this hope of mine was soon taken away, for when he went to sea, he left me on shore to look after his little garden and do the common drudgery of slaves about his house. And when he came home again from his cruise, he ordered me to lay in the cabin to look after the ship. Crusoe here thinks of nothing save getting his liberty and escaping his slavery. He is looking for a chance to do it, but Crusoe couldn't do it, since his master does not take him with him to the sea. He is kept to look after his master's garden and do his duty as a slave. Students, what leads Crusoe to face this unpleasant end? Is it his misfortune or his impetuosity? Crusoe the young man has a romantic temper which keeps him going in his adventures. Crusoe's adventurous life starts with his dissatisfaction of his routine. He rejects the traditional routinic life that his father has drawn for him. He refuses to be a lawyer and live a life of a middle estate, a life that lacks adventures. This dissatisfaction, of course, leads Crusoe to be rash in his decisions. He goes to sea seeking to satisfy himself and his ambition to be a sailor. Crusoe proves himself as a good trader and sailor, but a man who lacks wisdom. He seems impetuous in all his voyages. The first voyage, as you know, is made without consulting his father and mother, ignoring his father's advice and even that of the captain of his first voyage. Crusoe continues riding the sea, trying to feed his ambition and desires. So it is not his misfortune that leads him to this misery, but rather his impetuosity to be a sailor and make adventures, and also to make business and be a good trader. Students, thank you very much for your listening.